"You need to move out," my mom announced, her voice flat, as she chewed a mouthful of Christmas turkey. The words hit me like a physical blow, a cold slap in the face amidst the warmth of the festive season. I remember the clinking of cutlery, the soft hum of Christmas carols playing from the living room, and the sudden, deafening silence that followed her statement. My dad, who had been carving another slice of ham, froze, his knife poised midair. My younger sister, Sarah Y., died, choked on her mashed potatoes. "Really?" I managed to stammer, the single word barely a whisper, yet it felt like a shout in the stillness. My heart was pounding, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs. Was I wrong to expect more from my own family, especially on Christmas Day? Tell me, would you have reacted any differently if your entire world was suddenly pulled out from under you with a side of cranberry sauce? It all started, I suppose, not on that fateful Christmas Day, but much, much earlier. My name is Alex, and for as long as I could remember, I had been the responsible one. The oldest sibling, the one who always had a plan, the one who tried to keep the peace. My parents, though loving, were, well, they were a lot. My dad was a dreamer, constantly hopping from one get-rich quick scheme to another, each one more elaborate and doomed than the last. My mom was the more grounded of the two, but her idea of grounded often meant being intensely practical, sometimes to the point of being utterly ruthless. Sarah, my sister, was 5 years younger than me, and though we were close, she often bore the brunt of our parents' more chaotic tendencies, resulting in a rebellious streak a mile wide. My childhood wasn't exactly idyllic. We moved a lot, chasing my dad's latest business venture, which meant constantly changing schools and making new friends, only to leave them behind. It taught me resilience, I suppose, but also a deep, seated desire for stability, something I craved more than anything. When I finally graduated high school, I was determined to break the cycle. I worked 2 part-time jobs while taking online college courses, saving every penny I could. My dream was simple: get a stable job, buy a small house, and create a life where I didn't have to worry about the next shoe dropping. My parents, of course, were proud of my ambition, but their pride felt more like a passive acknowledgement than genuine support. They saw my drive as something inherent to me, not something they needed to foster or contribute to. The biggest hurdle was college. I knew they couldn't afford to send me, and I refused to take out crippling loans that would tether me to debt for decades. So I meticulously planned. I applied for every scholarship under the sun, worked extra shifts, and eventually secured enough grants and scholarships to cover tuition for a state university, with the understanding that I would live at home to save on rent and living expenses. My mom, in her characteristic practical way, agreed. "It makes sense, Alex," she'd said. "You help out around the house and we save money. It's a win-win." And that's exactly what I did. For the past 3 years, I had juggled full-time classes, a demanding part-time job at a local coffee shop, and all the household chores my mom deemed my share. I cooked dinners, cleaned the bathrooms, did the laundry, and even took care of Sarah when my parents were out. I was essentially a live-in housekeeper and nanny, all while pursuing my degree. I didn't mind, not really. It was part of the deal, part of my path to independence. I was on track to graduate with honors, a degree in business administration clutched tightly in my hand, ready to embark on the stable life I had always yearned for. Then came the new development, Sarah. She had just finished high school, and unlike me, she had absolutely no desire to go to college. Her dream was to be a fashion designer, and she had been accepted into a prestigious but incredibly expensive art school in a major city, several states away. My parents, surprisingly, were ecstatic. "It's Sarah's dream, Alex." My mom had gushed, her eyes sparkling with an excitement I had rarely seen directed at my own accomplishments. "We have to support her," and support her they did. Suddenly, There were discussions about how to pay for her tuition, her dorm, her living expenses. My dad, miraculously, seemed to have found a stable, his words, not mine job working for a distant cousin's construction company, which meant a steady paycheck for now. My mom, ever the pragmatist, started tightening the family budget, cutting down on unnecessary expenses. I thought nothing of it at the time, chalking it up to parental love and the usual financial gymnastics that characterized our family life. I even offered to help out more, picking up extra shifts at the coffee shop, thinking it would ease their burden. Christmas rolled around, and despite the underlying financial tension, the mood was festive. We had a beautiful tree, plenty of presents, and my mom had cooked her legendary turkey dinner. The house smelled of pine and spices, and for a fleeting moment I felt a sense of peace, a rare glimpse of the stable, happy family life I always longed for. We were halfway through dinner, everyone laughing and sharing stories, when my mom dropped the bomb. "You need to move out," she repeated, this time with a definitive nod, as if confirming a long, decided decree. My dad, finally regaining his composure, cleared his throat. "Well, Alex, you're graduating in May, right? You'll be getting a real job soon. It's time for you to stand on your own 2 feet." Sarah, meanwhile, had recovered from her choke and was now looking at me with an odd mixture of pity and guilt. "We need your room, Alex," my mom continued, her voice devoid of any warmth. "Sarah needs a dedicated space for her design work when she comes home for breaks. Her art school requires a studio space, even for remote projects, and it would be too expensive to rent one near campus, plus her dorm is tiny." My mind reeled. They were kicking me out, not because I was a burden, not because I hadn't pulled my weight, but to accommodate Sarah's art studio for when she came home on breaks . This wasn't about me standing on my own 2 feet. It was about making space for someone else, someone they considered more deserving of their limited resources. The injustice of it all burned in my chest. 3 years of sacrifices, of working tirelessly, of being the dutiful child, all for this. My scholarships and grants meant I didn't owe them anything financially for my education, but I had paid them back tenfold in labor and emotional support. But I'm still in school," I stammered, trying to keep my voice steady. "I have finals, I have my job. Where am I supposed to go?" My mom waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, you'll figure it out. You're resourceful, Alex. You always are." My dad chimed in, "Look, we'll help you find a place. A small apartment, maybe. It's an exciting new chapter for you." Their words, meant to be encouraging, felt like a betrayal. They were offering me platitudes while dismantling my life, all for the sake of Sarah's art school ambitions. I looked at Sarah, hoping for some sign of dissent, some flicker of solidarity, but she just looked down at her plate, picking at a piece of turkey. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken accusations and bitter disappointment. The festive atmosphere had vanished, replaced by a suffocating tension. I felt utterly alone, abandoned by the very people who were supposed to be my anchor. I tried to reason with them, to appeal to their sense of fairness. "Mom, Dad, I've been doing everything you've asked. I've been contributing financially, helping around the house, taking care of Sarah. I'm graduating in May. Can't I just stay until then? Give me a few months to save up properly, to find a place after I have my degree and a full-time job secured." My mom, however, was unyielding. "Alex, we've already made the decision. Sarah needs her space. She has a big future ahead of her, and we need to prioritize that." It was clear then. I was not a priority. My future, my stability, my sacrifices, none of it mattered in the face of Sarah's artistic aspirations. I felt a cold anger settle in my gut, a feeling I had rarely experienced towards my family. They were using me, plain and simple, and now that I was no longer convenient, they were discarding me. The next few weeks were a blur of frantic activity. I spent every spare moment after classes and work searching for apartments, trying to navigate the confusing world of leases and deposits with almost no savings. I reached out to friends, but everyone was either still living at home or in cramped student housing. The reality of my situation was stark. I was being pushed out with nowhere to go, all while still being expected to perform at peak academic and professional levels. The pressure was immense, and I felt a growing resentment towards my parents, and, unfairly, towards Sarah. She seemed oblivious, wrapped up in her art school preparations, excitedly talking about her dorm room and her classes. I couldn't bring myself to tell her how much her dream was costing me. I did, however, find a glimmer of hope. One of my co-workers at the coffee shop, an older woman named Brenda, had a spare room in her small apartment. She was a kind, eccentric artist who understood the struggles of young people trying to make their way in the world. She offered me the room at a reduced rent, far cheaper than anything else I had found, on the condition that I help her with her art commissions occasionally. It was a lifeline, a temporary reprieve, but it still meant I had to scramble to move all my belongings and adjust to a new living situation in the middle of my busiest semester. The stress was immense. I was studying for finals, working almost full-time, and packing my life into boxes, all while trying to process the emotional abandonment I felt. Moving day was a particularly bleak affair. My parents, true to form, were too busy to help. My dad had a work emergency, and my mom was helping Sarah pick out fabrics for her new projects. Sarah was, predictably, nowhere to be seen. Brenda and a couple of my friends from work were the only ones who showed up to help me lug my meager belongings into her small apartment. As I packed the last box from my childhood bedroom, the room that was now destined to be Sarah's studio, I felt a profound sense of loss, not just of a physical space, but of the illusion of a supportive family. I left a note on my bed for my parents, simple and to the point. Thanks for the Christmas present. I didn't wait for a response. Life with Brenda was an adjustment, but a welcome one. She was quirky but supportive, and her apartment, though small, felt like a sanctuary. I finished my degree with renewed determination, fueled by a quiet rage that pushed me to excel. I graduated with honors, just as planned, and immediately landed a fantastic entry-level position at a marketing firm, a direct result of my hard work and the glowing recommendations from my professors and Brenda. I was finally on my way. I worked tirelessly, saved diligently, and within a year I had my own small apartment, a place that was truly mine, earned through my own blood, sweat, and tears. My relationship with my family remained strained. My parents would call occasionally, asking about my job, my life, but their inquiries felt superficial, lacking genuine interest. They never apologized for kicking me out, never acknowledged the pain they had caused. Sarah, after a semester at her art school, decided it wasn't for her. She dropped out, came home, and ended up using my old room as, well, mostly a place to store her clothes and occasionally practice her sketching. The grand art studio my parents had sacrificed my stability for became an overpriced closet. This fact, while infuriating, also brought a strange sense of vindication. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. My parents were always quick to remind me that family comes first, but their actions had shown me a different truth. Now, a few years later, my dad's stable job with his cousin had, predictably, fallen through. My mom, ever the pragmatist, had invested a significant portion of their savings into Sarah's art school and her subsequent attempts to find herself, which included a brief stint as a barista and an even briefer attempt at becoming an influencer. They were in financial trouble, deep trouble, and they needed help. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have forgiven them? Would you have helped the family that had so readily discarded you? I received a call from my mom, her voice uncharacteristically shaky. "Alex, honey, your dad. He lost his job again, and with Sarah's student loan payments starting soon and the mortgage, we're really struggling. We were hoping you could help us out just for a little while until we get back on our feet." The irony was not lost on me. The very people who had cast me out when I was most vulnerable were now asking for my assistance, expecting me to be their savior. I listened silently, my mind racing. I had a good job, a comfortable life, and most importantly, stability. I had achieved everything I had set out to do independently, against their indifference. My first instinct was to say no, to finally assert myself and tell them to reap what they had sown, to remind them of that Christmas day, of their callous disregard for my well-being. But then I thought of Sarah. Despite everything, she was still my sister. She was caught in the crossfire of our parents' poor decisions and her own youthful naivety. And despite my anger, a part of me, the old responsible one, still felt a pang of concern for my family. So I took a deep breath and I laid out my conditions. "I will help you," I said, my voice firm, "but it won't be without terms." My mom, clearly desperate, quickly agreed. "Anything, Alex, anything you need. First," I began, "I will not be moving back home, and Sarah will need to find her own accommodation." There was a gasp on the other end, likely from my mom realizing the implications for Sarah's studio. "Second, I will provide a loan, not a gift. It will be a formal agreement with a repayment plan and interest. You will pay me back every penny on schedule. And third, and most importantly, you will both attend family counseling with me. We need to address what happened and why you made the choices you did before I can truly help you rebuild." The silence on the line was deafening for a long moment. I could almost hear my mom processing the audaciousness of my demands, the audacity of me, the discarded child, dictating terms. Finally she exhaled a long, weary sigh. "Okay, Alex, okay, we'll do it, all of it." And so the journey began. I formalized the loan, drawing up a contract with the help of a lawyer friend, ensuring every detail was ironclad. My parents, humbled by their circumstances, signed it without argument. The family counseling sessions were excruciating at first, filled with awkward silences, defensive excuses from my parents, and raw, unfiltered pain from me. I finally got to articulate the hurt, the betrayal, the feeling of being disposable. It was cathartic, albeit painful. Sarah, surprisingly, was also quite vocal, admitting that she had felt guilty for years, seeing how her dream had impacted me. She apologized sincerely, something my parents still struggled with. It took months, but slowly, painstakingly, we started to chip away at years of unspoken resentments and dysfunctional patterns. My parents, forced to confront their choices and their impact on me, slowly began to change. They started taking responsibility, not just for their financial woes, but for their emotional ones. My dad, no longer chasing pipe dreams, found steady work as a handyman, using his practical skills to earn an honest living. My mom started working part-time at a local bakery, finding a quiet satisfaction in her work. Sarah, inspired by my example and finally understanding the value of hard work, enrolled in a community college, pursuing a more practical degree in graphic design, while still nurturing her artistic passion on the side. The loan I provided helped them restructure their finances, pay off some critical debts, and stabilize their situation. They were diligent with their repayments, a testament to their newfound commitment. Our relationship is still a work in progress, but it's stronger, more honest, and built on a foundation of mutual respect, rather than silent resentment. I visit them regularly now, and the tension that once permeated our interactions has largely dissipated. We can talk, truly talk, about our lives, our struggles, and our hopes. And Sarah, my sister, is not just a sister, but a friend, someone who genuinely understands the complexities of our family history.